Good morning, Husker fans. Welcome back to the Husker Big Red YouTube channel. I'm Chris Peterson, and joining me, as always, is Danny Gillette. And today we're back for a quick video to discuss the 2025 Nebraska football schedule and potential trap games for the Huskers. The schedule is very manageable for Nebraska. There's only a couple of potential top 25 teams on the schedule, but things always look more difficult than they appear. And there's going to be a few games that always end up challenging you more than you think, at least for the program's perspective. So we're going to kind of lay out some of those landmines, look ahead, and see what trap games you need to have kind of in mind as a Nebraska football fan. So, Danny, before we get into it, how are you doing today, man, as we're inching closer to the 2025 Nebraska football season?
I can't believe we're doing these season previews already and these predictions and stuff. I mean, the off season kind of flew by a little bit, and I can't believe we're here already again.
It is pretty crazy that we're closing in now, less than 40 days away from the season opener at Arrowhead Stadium, the Kansas City Classic against Cincinnati. And so what we're going to do is we're each going to pick out one trap game. We're going to go, we're going to do three, but we're going to go one at a time, and we'll talk about why, et cetera, why we are worried about these games. So we'll start off with trap game number one, and I am going to say Cincinnati. I think is my first trap game of the season. Now, the Bearcats, I think they're at 6.5-point underdog. Nebraska should win this game, but the Cincinnati team, 5-7. Satterfield, Scott Satterfield, a little bit on the hot seat. Not saying that Nebraska is going to be overlooking these guys at all, but I do think that this is going to be a more difficult matchup than some people think. It wouldn't surprise me if Cincinnati gave Nebraska, a bit of a challenge in this first game. They have a solid running game. They have a solid defense. They have their quarterback returning from last season. So, looking at this schedule, one of the games that does worry me a little bit, maybe more than most, is that season opener against Cincinnati.
Yeah, and I could definitely see it because they're going to come out determined. They're going to come out, Scott Satterfield said that they've already begun to game plan and prepare. So I could definitely see that being a trap game because this is one of those games where the Bearcats have nothing to lose and everything to gain in their mind. So, and especially when you consider the venue and how excited the crowd will be, it could be a tough challenge for Nebraska, although I think a lot of the crowd will be Huskers fans, so there is that.
Yeah, I think we'll be a pro Huskers crowd in KC that first game of the season. So Cincinnati's my first trap game. What's your first trap game, Danny?
Maryland, because Mike Locksley always has his teams, prepared and playing at a high level. Yes, they went 4-8 last season, but they still have a bunch of playmakers. They have a little bit of youth at the quarterback position. Malik Washington, they do have a veteran in Justin Martin, and also wide receivers in Jaleel Farouk, and guys like that. So Mike Locksley teams always tend to hang in there and play hard. So I could see Maryland coming off short rest being a trap game.
Yeah, I definitely, that's one of the games I think that could cause Nebraska some problems. Maryland is a very talented team. They did lose, quite a few players to the portal, but yeah, like you said, they've got a really talented quarterback. And he's, by the time Nebraska rolls around, he's going to have a lot more seasoning. So yeah, and Maryland, it's going to be another one where Mike Locksley, could be, if they get to a bowl game, I mean, that could save his job. So, that'll be an interesting game to watch. And there's no easy road games in the Big Ten. And Nebraska fans, I think, have realized that over the past few years. But every road game is tough. And so my second trap game, and maybe you'll agree with me, but it's going to be the next game after that Maryland game, that Friday night at Minnesota. Our old friend PJ Fleck, who seems to get the better of Nebraska most of the time. They were 8-5 last season. It's weird with Minnesota because every year it seems like they kind of stuck. And then you look up at the end of the year and they're 8-4 or 8-5 or whatever.
Yep.
So they just find a way to win games, even though they seem to have less talent every year. There's a quarterback competition. Drake Lindsey, Zach Pyron are kind of battling it out there. They do have, Darius Taylor is supposed to be back this year from injury. Coy Parrish, all Big Ten safeties coming back. So they do have some pretty talented players. And, just that's a game on the road on a Friday night on a second road game. I think that's one where if you look at all these games that Nebraska's like technically supposed to win, that's one where I'm really, really concerned. And if they can find a way to win both of those games or even one of those two, I think that would be a huge step. But that's, again, you talk about the difference between this stretch here at Maryland and at Minnesota. That's
Yep.
why I have Nebraska as a 9-win team, because I think they're gonna drop one of those two games, unfortunately.
Which one of those games do you think they're going to drop?
Minnesota. I think they'll beat Maryland, and then I think the second game on that Friday night they'll lose to Minnesota. That's what I predicted before. As much as I hate it, and I hate
because it's the second game off of a short rest, and you talked about the Michigan game being a good litmus test to see where this team is. I think this stretch and the Minnesota game is going to be a good test, because after this you have the West Coast teams and then Penn State and Iowa. So this stretch here and the Minnesota game kind of sets the table for a much difficult second half of the season.
And so, so would you agree that is the Minnesota one your second trap game,
Yep.
Danny?
Yeah, because like you said, PJ Fleck teams are always well coached. They're always tough. They're always physical, and they always do the little things right. The stuff that may not stand out in the box score, but they always are a very disciplined team, and you have to kind of not allow yourself to not have any self-inflicted wounds, because Minnesota will take advantage of them. And PJ Fleck teams have always been very good at kind of taking care of the little details in game. And if Nebraska struggles or has a bunch of turnovers or can't get things going, Minnesota will pounce. So this is definitely my second trap game.
Yeah, and I think that one makes a ton of sense for reasons that we both kind of lined out. So trap game number 3, and this is one they beat Nebraska last year, so this is one that I've kind of got circled on my calendar. It's UCLA, and Deshaun Foster, 5-7. I know they got off to a terrible start last year, but they finished pretty well, and they brought back their offensive coordinator. They obviously got Nico Amiavela. I probably totally messed that up, but
I think you're close.
They added a strong running back from Utah, and I just think that Deshaun Foster is a pretty good head coach. I was really impressed with the way that he finished the season with UCLA. I think that Nico, without all the pressure on him, I know that he went through this whole ordeal, but like playing for UCLA is so much different than playing in the SEC and for Tennessee. And like he was expected to like win a national championship and all that. And I feel like even though there's still going to be some focus on him, like it's such a like the microscope is not on him anymore, and I feel like he's going to thrive out there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying UCLA is going to be like one of the best teams in the Big Ten, but I think they're going to win 6-7 games, and that road game in Los Angeles in the Rose Bowl is going to be very difficult. So mark that one down on your calendars as well, folks.
I hate to copy you, but I agree. I mean, when you look at UCLA's offense and how they're able to pick apart Nebraska's defense last season, I think this is going to be a game where the corners are really going to need to play at a high level and show out. And Nico is a very talented quarterback. I know he's had struggles, and I know people have their doubts, but like you, I think he'll thrive in a less pressure situation. I love Deshaun Foster. I think he's a great player motivator as a coach, and I had my doubts about him heading into last season, but even though they started off slow, they were able to find their groove and finish off strong, and I expect that to carry over. And so I think this game could very easily be a trap game, and especially late in the season when players are starting to get banged up with injuries and things, it could really be a test for Nebraska and for Dylan Raiola.
Yeah, it'll be an interesting matchup in UCLA. A lot tougher, I think, with Nico Amiavela out there.
Mm-hmm.
So those are our 3 trap games for Nebraska football in the 2025 season. Looking ahead to Wednesday, we will recap everything that happens on Tuesday at Big Ten Media Days. So look out for that. Please make sure that you hit the subscribe button. Get into the comment section. Let us know what you think about our trap games. Let us know what your trap games are, what potential roadblocks you see for the Huskers this season. And as always, go Big Red.
Go Big Red.